All right, so get this. We're going deep on this one.
Ooh, deep dive time.
Yeah, like really deep.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so we're diving into the life of Max Chernoff,
Okay.
Ukrainian American dude who decided to ditch NYC for Manila 5 years ago.
Interesting.
I know, right?
Big change.
Huge.
All right.
And he made this YouTube video called Why He Chose Philippines Over America.
Okay.
And it makes you think about what a good life really means, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we always hear about the American dream.
Right, right.
But Max is like flipping the script.
Makes you wonder if we've got it all wrong.
Yeah, seriously. So he starts by talking about how we often associate the Philippines with like beautiful beaches
Right. Yeah.
and friendly people.
Of course, yeah. The classic image.
But it goes way deeper than that.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
One thing that really blew my mind was that 30% of foreign nurses in the U.S. are from the Philippines.
Wow, 30%. That's a huge number.
I know, it's crazy, right?
It really makes you think about Filipino culture.
Yeah.
You know? Like care and compassion are obviously huge values there.
Right.
I mean, it makes you wonder why so many would choose to leave a place known for its warmth, to work in a system that, well, can often feel kind of impersonal and profit-driven.
It's true. It's a big contrast.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's one of the things that Max points out.
Okay.
He felt that in the U.S., like, the pursuit of money often trumps everything else.
Yeah, I see that.
Even, like, basic morals sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like it's all about the bottom line.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But in the Philippines, he found this sense of happiness and strong community, even with less material wealth.
So it's like a different definition of wealth almost.
Totally.
You know, it makes you wonder, you know, if maybe the U.S. in prioritizing individual financial gain above all else has kind of lost sight of some of the things that really make for a strong and happy society.
That's deep.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, and Max even talks about seeing missed business opportunities in the Philippines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like things that an American entrepreneur would probably jump on in a heartbeat.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so he gives this example about parking lots.
Okay.
Like, in the U.S., someone would totally charge an arm and a leg to park in a prime spot, right?
I know, absolutely. Prime parking is like gold.
But in the Philippines, that kind of aggressive money-grabbing mentality just wasn't as prevalent.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, and he even uses the word greed, which might sound harsh.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it does make you think about the downsides of a purely profit-driven mindset.
It does. It really makes you wonder about the trade-offs.
Yeah.
Greed is a strong word, though.
It is.
But I see his point.
Yeah, and it makes you think about the cultural differences, too.
Right. Like maybe in a society with such a strong sense of community like the Philippines, there's just a natural inclination to share and to prioritize the well-being of the group over individual profit.
Yeah, and it's not that Filipinos lack ambition or anything.
Right.
It's more about, like, where that ambition is directed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And, you know, this all goes against the common American misconception that the Philippines is just a poverty-stricken nation.
Right. A lot of people have a pretty limited view of it.
Totally. And Max actually spent time in Tondo, which is one of the poorest neighborhoods in Manila.
Wow.
And he said the poverty was undeniable, like you couldn't miss it.
Right.
But what was also undeniable was the resilience of the people.
Okay.
Like smiles, friendly waves, kids playing in the streets. It really challenged his assumptions about what happiness looks like.
That's powerful. It really makes you question our Western metrics for measuring success and happiness.
It really does.
Like, are we missing part of the picture?
Maybe a big part.
Possibly.
And get this, Max found that the warmth and kindness he experienced from Filipinos spanned across different socioeconomic levels.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's something he felt was different from the U.S., where he observed a more noticeable divide in attitudes based on social status.
Huh. That's a really interesting observation.
Yeah.
It speaks to a deep sense of shared humanity, I think.
Yeah.
Like this feeling of interconnectedness that goes beyond material differences.
I love that interconnectedness.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about the cost of living.
Okay. Yeah, let's get practical.
Right, especially for expats like Max.
Right.
He paints a pretty attractive picture.
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay, imagine this. A one-bedroom apartment in BGC.
BGC, that's like a high-end area, right?
Yeah, like a really nice part of Manila.
Okay.
And you can get a one-bedroom there for under $1,000 a month.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
I know, right?
Especially compared to NYC.
Oh my gosh.
That's like a dream.
It's crazy.
But it's important to remember that, you know, that's not the reality for a lot of Filipinos.
True.
Max mentions call center employees making less than $600 a month.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So, yeah, the cost of living is definitely relative.
It always is.
Yeah.
And even within the Philippines, there are surprises.
Okay, like what?
So Max says that food can be unexpectedly expensive.
Really?
Yeah, particularly dairy and meat. Huh, interesting.
But then you have things like parking and transportation that are dirt cheap.
Yeah, especially when you think about those jeepneys.
Oh, yeah, the GB's got to love those.
They're so cool.
They're iconic.
They really are like a symbol of Filipino culture.
Yeah, resourceful and unique.
But they do contribute to pollution,
That's true.
which is a problem, as the Philippines tries to deal with environmental concerns.
Yeah.
It's like they represent this tension between tradition and progress.
Right.
It's fascinating.
It's like a microcosm of the challenges facing a lot of developing nations.
Totally. But, okay, beyond the practical stuff,
Okay.
Max highlights something that I found really interesting: the prevalence of shade in Philippine cities.
Shade.
Yeah, like they've really designed their urban spaces with the tropical heat in mind.
Oh, that's so smart.
It is,
It
right?
shows a real consideration for people's well-being.
Exactly.
Like they're prioritizing comfort and functionality in their urban planning.
And Max seems to think they've nailed it, especially in BGC.
Yeah, I've heard good things about BGC.
He considers it one of the top cities for urban living,
Wow.
with a high quality of life relative to the cost.
That's impressive.
He even ranks it above places like Singapore.
Okay, high praise.
Yeah, but now get ready, because Max's experience with healthcare is where things get really interesting.
Okay, healthcare. This is a big one.
Huge. And he approaches this from a really personal perspective because his wife was diagnosed with a serious neurological condition.
Wow, that's heavy.
It is, and it adds this whole other layer to his observations.
Right, it's not just theoretical anymore.
No, it's real life.
Yeah, he's really lived it.
And what he found is striking, especially compared to the U.S. healthcare system.
Okay, I'm ready. Lay it on me.
So first off, the cost.
Okay.
He talks about seeing a neurologist for like $25.
Well,
I know. And an MRI for $500.
are you serious?
It's serious.
Those numbers are mind-boggling for anyone who's used to U.S. healthcare prices.
Totally mind-blowing.
It's a stark reminder of how unequal healthcare is around the world.
Yeah, it's really unfair.
It makes you question why something so essential is treated like a luxury in some places.
It's true.
And readily available and affordable in others.
Yeah, crazy.
Crazy.
But it's not just about the cost.
Okay, what else?
What really struck Max was the approach to care in the Philippines.
The approach. Okay.
He describes the doctors and nurses as being incredibly kind, polite, and willing to explain everything thoroughly.
That's so different from what we often hear about healthcare in the U.S.
It's a world away from those rushed, impersonal interactions.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like just a number.
A cog in the machine.
Right, exactly.
And it all comes back to that cultural value we talked about before.
Care.
Care.
It seems like it's just baked into the healthcare system there.
It's not just about treating the illness, it's about treating the person.
Yeah, with empathy and respect.
Exactly. And Max even suggests that this genuine care might actually contribute to the healing process.
That's fascinating.
It makes you think, right?
It really does. Like, how much does our emotional and psychological state influence our physical recovery?
That's the question.
Big question.
So after all this, would Max ever consider going back to NYC?
Good question.
Well, when it comes to living there again, his answer is a resounding no.
No way.
Nope. He's got his reasons, though.
Yeah, I'm all ears.
He cites cultural clashes, the climate, the high cost of living, and that persistent dog-eat-dog mentality.
Oh, yeah, that New York hustle.
It can be a bit much.
It can wear you down.
And he even shares this crazy story about being chased by a homeless man in broad daylight on a busy NYC street.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a contrast to the relative safety and peace he feels in Manila.
Yeah, that's a pretty stark difference.
It is. It makes you think about the trade-offs we make when choosing where to live.
For sure. Like, what are your priorities?
Right. Safety and peace, or the excitement and opportunities of a big city.
It's a tough call.
It is, but Max seems to have found a sense of peace and belonging in Manila that he just didn't have in New York City.
It's a good reminder that home isn't always about a specific location.
It's a feeling.
Yeah, a feeling of connection, comfort, alignment with your surroundings.
I love that.
It's a good feeling.
Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, though.
No.
Max is honest about some of the cultural differences and potential tensions that exist between locals and foreigners in the Philippines.
Right, like every place has its complexities.
Exactly. He acknowledges those stereotypical views of foreigners coming to the Philippines just to find a wife.
Oh, yeah, that old chestnut.
which he rightly points out is a very superficial perspective.
It is, yeah. It reduces people to just one dimension.
Exactly. And he also talks about the potential for misunderstandings stemming from cultural differences.
It's bound to happen when you're interacting with people from different backgrounds.
And he brings up this phenomenon he calls reverse racism.
Reverse racism.
Oh.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
I know. It's interesting, right?
Yeah, what does he mean by that?
So he describes situations where Filipinos show excessive deference to foreigners, almost to the point of intimidation. Okay, like how so?
He gives examples of people refusing to enter an elevator with him.
Really?
Yeah, or waiting for him to exit first, even when it would make more sense for them to go ahead.
Wow, that's interesting.
He interprets this as a form of reverse racism because it creates this artificial advantage for foreigners simply based on their appearance or nationality.
That's a really thought-provoking point.
It is. It makes you think.
It makes you wonder about the power dynamics at play.
Right, and how even seemingly polite gestures can perpetuate inequality.
Yeah, exactly.
And Max acknowledges that while this deference might seem like an advantage on the surface, it can actually hinder the Philippines' progress as a nation.
That makes sense.
So what's behind this deference, this hesitancy to interact with foreigners on an equal footing?
That's a good question.
Well, Max points to a phenomenon Filipinos call nosebleed.
Nosebleed. Wait, is this literal?
No.
Okay, good, because I was a little worried there.
It's not a medical condition.
It's a lighthearted term they use to describe the mental strain or anxiety some Filipinos experience when trying to speak English with a foreigner.
Oh, I see.
They feel like their brains are working so hard to translate and communicate that they might get a nosebleed from the effort.
It's kind of funny.
It is. It's like their way of saying they're feeling a bit overwhelmed or self-conscious about their English skills.
I get it. Yeah, it can be intimidating to speak a foreign language.
Totally. And while it's understandable, Max points out that it can create a barrier to genuine communication.
Right. And it can perpetuate a sense of inferiority among some Filipinos.
Which isn't good.
Not at all. It's a complex issue, though.
It is for sure.
On one hand, you want to respect cultural norms and sensitivities.
Right.
But on the other hand, you also want to encourage open and equal communication.
It's a balance.
It is. And that's where empathy and understanding come in.
Absolutely.
Recognizing that language can be a source of both pride and anxiety.
Yeah.
And finding ways to bridge that gap through patience and encouragement.
I think that's key.
It can go a long way in fostering genuine connections.
Totally. So Max seems to have a real knack for picking up on these subtle cultural nuances.
He does. He's a good observer.
He is. What other unique insights has he gleaned from living in the Philippines?
Yeah. It's wild how even something as simple as entering an elevator can be so loaded with cultural meaning.
It's the little things sometimes, you know?
Don't even think about it.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole nosebleed thing.
It's such a funny way to put it.
It is, right.
Yeah.
But it really highlights how language is so tied up with identity and confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're not confident in your language skills, it can really hold you back.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder to be patient and understanding when we're interacting with people from different cultures.
Totally. A little bit of humor can go a long way, too.
Oh, for sure.
It's about creating a space where everyone feels comfortable,
Yeah, the space where everyone can be themselves.
regardless of their language skills.
Exactly.
Okay, so Max also talks about some of the practicalities of life in the Philippines. Okay, like what?
Well, he talks about the cost of living and how it can vary a lot depending on whether you're learning a Western salary or a local one.
Right. That makes sense.
He gives the example of a one-bedroom apartment in BGC costing less than $1,000 a month,
Okay.
which for someone earning a Western salary is amazing.
Yeah, that's a steal.
But for a local Filipino family, that could be a huge chunk of their monthly income.
True. It's all about perspective.
And even when it comes to food, there are surprises.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, Max says that while fresh produce is abundant and affordable, things like dairy and meat can be pretty expensive.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, he even mentions that sour cream is hard to come by and cottage cheese is practically unheard of.
Wow. I never thought about that.
It's funny how what we consider expensive or cheap is so relative to our own experiences.
It really is. What might be a basic staple in one country could be a luxury item in another.
It's true. And speaking of cultural contrast, Max's experience with the Philippine healthcare system is really interesting.
Healthcare is always a big topic.
Yeah, it is. And especially because his experience is so tied up with his wife's neurological condition.
Right, that personal experience adds a whole other layer to it.
It does. He's not just observing, he's living it.
Exactly, and it makes his observations all the more powerful.
And what he found is pretty amazing, starting with the cost.
Okay, hit me with the
Think about it.
numbers.
So he's talking about neurologist consultations for like $25.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, and MRIs for $500.
Those prices are insane compared to the
I
U.S.
know, it's mind-blowing.
It really makes you think about the inequalities in healthcare around the world.
It does. It makes you question why access to quality healthcare is such a privilege in some places.
When it should be a right.
Exactly, a basic human right.
But it's not just about the cost either.
Right. There's more to it.
What else struck him?
The overall approach to care.
The approach, okay.
Max describes the doctors and nurses as being so kind, so polite, and genuinely invested in explaining things to their patients.
That's so refreshing to hear.
It really ties back to that core value of care that we talked about.
Right, that sense of empathy and respect that seems to be woven into the culture.
It's not just about treating the illness, it's about treating the person.
And Max even goes so far as to say that this genuine care, this feeling of being seen and heard by your healthcare providers, might actually contribute to the healing process.
Wow, that's a powerful idea.
It is. It makes you wonder if we're missing something in our Western approach to healthcare.
I think we are.
Me too.
You know, I think Max's story really challenges us to reevaluate what matters in life.
Yeah.
He found a different kind of wealth in the Philippines.
Different kind of wealth.
A wealth of connection and community and a pace of life that allowed him to prioritize his family and his well-being.
It's about finding what truly resonates with you.
It is, and it's not always about money or material possessions.
Sometimes it's about something much deeper.
Exactly. And you know what I love about Max's story is that it encourages us to question our assumptions.
To challenge the status quo.
Yeah, to really think about what we've been told about success and happiness and whether that's actually true for us.
To define our own version of the good life.
Yes. And who knows, maybe there's a version of the good life waiting for us in a place we never expected.
A place that aligns with our values and nourishes our soul.
Exactly. And maybe it's closer than we think, or maybe it's halfway across the world.
The journey is part of the adventure.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if Max's story has sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to check out his YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's a fascinating glimpse into a different culture, a different way of seeing the world.
And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to embark on your own adventure.
Whether it's across the globe or just outside your comfort zone.
That's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely pushing those boundaries and discovering what's out there.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Max Chernov's life in the Philippines.
Until next time.